Good afternoon. My name is Kate Ertmann. I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Portland, and welcome to our second online video weekly membership meeting. So I don't know if you all know that our club's office has board meeting minutes dating back to just about the beginning of our club from 110 years ago. So when Siobhan was in the office last week, she looked up the minutes from 1918, and I'm about to quote here. It says, "A special meeting of the Board of Trustees, the Rotary Club of Portland, held at the Benson Grill on Tuesday, October 22nd, 1918 at 12:15 p.m. Vice President G.H. Douglas presiding, and the meeting was called for the purpose of keeping the trustees in touch with one another during the epidemic of flu, which has temporarily discontinued the regular weekly luncheons," end quote. Then the following week, the trustees met again and opened that meeting with, again, I quote, "an informal discussion of matters of interest to the board, the principal topic being the prevailing epidemic of flu, and after a very fine luncheon arrived by Chef Henri and a good cigar by ex-President Pike, the board took informally the publication of a bulletin during the flu epidemic," end quote. So you can see it's really not that different than what we're doing right now, perhaps substituting bulletin for emails and for social media channels like Facebook. And as far as I know, there have been no good cigars happening during any of the board meetings, though I can say that I am not always able to see everybody during the board meeting. Anyway, now please welcome Rotarian and President-elect nominee Reed Miller to give this week's reflection.
Thank you, Kate. Good afternoon, Rotarians. I'm sure many of you never thought you would someday be attending a Rotary luncheon while sitting in front of your computer. I'm also fairly sure many of you never imagined that someday you would be ordered by law to self-quarantine because of a world pandemic. On the other hand, I'm also sure most of you never dreamed that you would have the job that you have or the career that you have had. I'm sure you also never thought there would be self-driving cars roaming the roads. The point is, with hard work and persistence, we can get through this, and we can prevail. We are Rotarians, and people look up to us in this community. More than that, our friends and our families look up to us. It's our job to be role models. It's times like these that is more important than ever to do the right thing and to set a good example. We need to stay positive, we need to be optimistic, and we need to look at the bright side. For instance, I bet your homes have never been cleaner. I bet your pets have never been happier. And I'll bet you have finally found time to read that book that you've been wanting to read. Rotarians, these are the times that people look to us and lean on us for stability and for hope. Be the rock for all the people that need it. Stay positive, always look at the bright side, and never lose hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reed, for that very on point. I'm just gonna say it was very on point. And I appreciate that you also reflected back that this is, none of us have done this before. None of us have lived through a pandemic before. So this is definitely the way to look at things. And as I think I also keep saying over and over again, and you keep saying, and all of us in leadership, when we've had our meetings the past couple of weeks, we keep saying, it's time for Rotarians to lead. And this is, let's be examples of how we can lead. So thank you. I want to make sure to welcome any of our virtual guests today. Thank you for tuning into our video membership meeting. And I would like to extend a happy anniversary to everyone who became a Rotarian in the month of March. You can see that March anniversary list in the email that was sent along with this video link, and it's also on our website under the header of membership. As always, my fellow Rotarians, please make the effort to reach out and thank these folks for their years of service above self. Now, I would like to give an update. This was communicated to us from Wes Harper, who is a Rotarian, of course, and also on the Domestic Violence Solutions Committee. And he asked that we could please make the announcement that was made to him from Faye Schuler. She is the Executive Director of Call to Safety. And what they have been doing in this time period has been that their staff at Call to Safety has had to change their remote call centers to all of their homes, of course, in response to the coronavirus. So with the staff now working out of their homes, they are requesting donations, specifically of headsets and laptops, which may be slightly a large ask, but yet doesn't take many for them to be able to continue to do the work that they need to do right now, which is be a resource for those that are dealing with and wanting to escape as well as take care of themselves in the realm of domestic violence. So thank you, Wes Harper, Rotarian Wes Harper, for making that announcement to us so we could share it with you. And if you have that resource, if you have a laptop or if you have a headset that you can donate, please contact Wes directly, which of course you can find that his information online or in your directory if you don't already have it. So thanks again, Wes, for sharing that with us. Next up, Enterprise Academy is the committee that we highlight in this month of March, the longest month of the year it appears to be. And this year's camp happened way back on the first weekend of March. So please now welcome from the Enterprise Academy Committee, Rotarian Cole Mills.
Hey everybody, are we still in March? I guess this is the absolute longest month of the year. Might be the longest month of my life. I was joking prior to getting on to make this, that this is what everybody's financial advisor looks like right now, sitting in their cave, long bearded, long haired, not looking all too comfortable, but all things considered, we're doing okay. But as far as Enterprise Academy is concerned, we couldn't have gotten luckier. We had it the absolute last weekend. We probably could have had it without having to shut the entire thing down. So in some ways, we're incredibly fortunate that timing just absolutely worked in our favor to actually be able to hold camp. So that's, first things first, we were able to hold an amazing camp this year. We had about 104 students applied this year, which is a great turnout for us. Unfortunately, obviously with the Corona stuff going on, we had about 64 students that actually showed up at camp, but we had 64 engaged, excited young adults who were there to learn and to grow. I want to give a big shout out to all of our guest speakers. Augustine Enriquez, who you guys all know from the club, came out and spoke to the kids about Rotary and what Rotary is all about, kind of gave his story about GBD. We had Augusto Corino, and I probably butchered his last name, but Augusto is the owner of Nosa Familia Coffee, and he came out and really got the kids' wheels turning about how do you take this small coffee idea into a thriving certified B Corp business, really got the kids thinking about the ethical component of business and how ethics should be layered into the decisions they're making as teams when it came to their own particular business plans. We had Randy and Lisa, who own Soulmate Socks. They've come out for a number of years and gave the kids all a free stocking cap and a free pair of socks, but also told them their great story about how they took grandma's idea of making mismatched socks in her, up in her bedroom in Vermont and turning that into a national company, selling socks all over the world now. And then we had these great teams. We had 9 teams competing this year. The winning team came up with a Bluetooth device toothbrush that vibrates in your mouth and kind of plays music through vibration on your teeth. Kind of an interesting idea, but they were the ones that actually won this year's competition. But we had ergonomic backpacks, and we had the Woofy wipe, a dog wipe for dog paws. We had just an incredible slew of businesses. We had tons of adults that came out on Saturday as panelists to work with the kids kind of in their teams respectively to help them with finances and operations and marketing and all that. And then we had a big number of adults that came out on Sunday to sit and listen and give their Sunday morning to hear all the pitches that were made by all the various teams. As usual, the kids came mostly not knowing each other and leaving as fast friends. And so I was really pleased at how things went this year. We had challenges around the Corona like we do every year. There's some challenges, but this year it happened to be Corona, but we worked our way through it. I think we took some good lessons away. I was also very excited about kind of deepening the relationship that Enterprise Academy has with Portland Public Schools and getting a deeper level of engagement for Portland Public Schools. And that's certainly what we're going to be working on this year in the off season between the next camp, is really continuing to seed those relationships that we have with the various districts that help us get the students there to attend. So I would say, all things considered, considering that we were essentially 2 or 3 days ahead of the curve on this and were able to hold camp without having to completely cancel it was a real win. And I think that we'll be poised and ready to go for an Enterprise Academy 2021, hopefully with no ancillary madness in its wake. But great year for camp, and we'll be back next week to kind of talk a little bit more about what we're working on for next year. That's what I got. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Cole, so much for that very in-depth update. I've been waiting for that for a few weeks because though I got to experience it a bit myself being out there, it was very great to hear it from you and your perspective as someone who's been involved for so many years and pulling it together. So I'm so glad that you also deemed it to be a success.
Real quick shout out to Kate, you guys. She came out 2 days in a row, came out on Saturday to be a CFO panelist with us, which was a huge help, and then came back out and drug her husband out on Sunday to watch all these kids make their pitches. So it is very much appreciated. Thanks, Kate.
Absolutely. That's something I actually now look forward to doing every year, especially watching all the kids, again, who don't know each other, and they pull together an amazing group of new companies. And they could actually run a company and actually at least they know how to break down how to make a business plan for a company and what it takes to at least get through those first few months of startup life. So it's always a pleasure to do that. And we had quite a few Rotarians come out this year too, including the person we're going to hear from in a little bit, our main speaker of today, Patrick, but I won't get into that now. Right now,
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt, Kate. Patrick, I did not give you a shout out. I am so sorry. Patrick was also our Saturday night speaker. He came out and told the kids what are the 7 keys to getting up and making a killer Enterprise Academy pitch. Patrick, my apologies. Thank you so much.
And I got to see, they actually used it, Patrick. They all had the sheets with the 7 keys on it, and they used it in their pitches on that Sunday as well. So once again, Rotarians being effective, helping their communities. I love it. Okay, Cole, I'm shutting you down. And now I'm going to pass the mic to Executive Director of our Rotary Club. That would be Corinn deTorres. And she's now going to give an office update.
Thank you, Kate. 3 years ago, past President Steve Watts led us through a new strategic plan for our Rotary Club. We discussed many topics from membership engagement to club activities to finances of the club. And actually, I think you will be hearing from Steve in the next week or two about the strategic plan and updates on that plan. But looking at our membership trends, it became clear to us as a strategic planning committee that we needed to focus on right-sizing our club. Right-sizing is a bit of a buzzword, might sound intimidating to some. It might mean loss. It might mean that we are losing. But we looked at right-sizing as an opportunity. See, the environment for clubs such as ours has changed dramatically over the years. We used to be 700 members in the glory days. As you weren't a successful business man, let's be honest, unless you were a member of Rotary. And there was only one Rotary Club in Portland and in all of the surrounding areas of Portland. And it was ours. But things have changed quite a bit. Being a Rotarian is still a source of pride. It's just a little less known. Being a Rotarian still means you are doing an incredible amount of good in the world, but there's just a lot more competition for people's time and charitable energy. We all know that change happens. Change is mostly good. Change is important to keep our world thriving. And with that change, our club needed to do some deep soul searching to figure out what is the right size for us? How can we best serve our members and our community while keeping the overhead as low as possible? Believe me, in my 7 years as executive director of this club, in addition to being involved in every major decision this club has made, every major project, every leadership decision, every board agenda, every president's successes and failures, I have also cut and cut and cut and cut our budget. And still, the club is at a financial loss. It is time for us to make some big changes. In February of 2021, we will not be renewing our office lease, and we will move to a more virtual setting. And in August of 2020, I will resign as executive director of this club, and the board will create a new position that is a mashup of my job and Siobhan's job, called administrative manager, we think. Working title. Moving to one full-time staff position and a virtual office, we will save the club thousands every year. before you feel bad for me, please know that I not only support this change, I recommended it. And as I said, I have served at the club as executive director for 7 years and was a member for 3 years before that. So my Rotary resume is long and involved. It's time for me to pursue my own passions and businesses full time. And before you feel bad for the club, please know this is that a tremendous amount of thought has gone into these decisions, and it truly is the best move for Rotary at this time. We will begin our search for candidates starting in April and hope to hire by mid-June. And please, if you have any further questions, reach out to me at any time.
Thank you, Corinn, so much. And thank you for emphasizing that this is an opportunity for our club to right size. And again, buzzword. And I will forever, truly, I will forever appreciate that you were the person in our strategic planning meetings a few years back to make this suggestion, knowing that the direct impact it would have on you as well as on Siobhan in our office staff. So since I've known about this change for a few months, I've already had some time to get used to it. I realize some of you out there may be hearing this for the first time, quite likely, but know that we will be giving you updates on this news as we have it, as we go through the search and as we just move forward executing on the strategic plan. As Corinn did mention off the top there, President Steve Watts, former President Steve Watts, will be the one to give you that update in a couple of weeks as far as a status report on how things are going with the strategic plan. But again, thank you, Corinn, very much for everything. I'd now like to welcome Rotarian Dev Dion as today's Chair of the Day.
Thank you, Kate. It's a pleasure to introduce my friend and fellow Rotary Club of Portland member, Patrick Galvin. After graduating from the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, Patrick received a Rotary ambassadorial scholarship that fully funded his studies of history and political science at the University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Patrick has been a member of the Rotary Club of Portland for 7 years and served as our club's membership chair for 2 years. He currently serves as president of the Portland Rotary Charitable Trust. He was a featured speaker at the Rotary International Convention in Sao Paulo, Brazil in 2015. Patrick's passion is about building business one relationship at a time. He is the chief galvanizer of the Galvanizing Group, which is a coaching company that helps high-performance corporate teams build better relationships that increase sales. Patrick, his wife Ellen, 12-year-old daughter Anya, and Boston Terrier puppy Ollie live in the Alameda neighborhood in Northeast Portland. Like many Portlanders with children in the age of the coronavirus, Patrick and Ellen are working hard to getting their stay-at-home schoolhouse geared up for Anya and hope to crack into the list of the top 100,000 homeschools in Oregon. Today, Patrick is here to share his TEDx talk titled, "Should Self-Interest Motivate Service?" that he delivered in McMinnville, Oregon 2 months ago. Patrick?
Thank you very much for that, Deb. I'm the only one who showed up at the I'm the only one who showed up today at the Sentinel. I don't know what happened. Here it is, an empty room. I should be back at my one-room schoolhouse. It is a challenge, I'm sure, for everyone watching who has a child to be leading the way as an educator and an employee or the owner of a company. So it has been an interesting time for sure for me. And I am excited to have a diversion right now. And the reason that I gave a TED Talk in January of this year in McMinnville was I was frustrated. When I took over as membership chair in 2013, I thought, hey, this is going to be so easy. All I have to do is share the good news about Rotary and people are going to want to join our club. Well, guess what? Didn't work out that way. So I was membership chair for 2 years. And during my tenure, I saw a decline in membership. So for the past 6 years, I've been kind of stewing on this, wondering what could I have done differently? How can we possibly grow not only Rotary, but service organizations in general and nonprofits? So that's what I addressed in my TED Talk. And what I'm going to do with, if technology is smiling on us, is I'm going to share my TED Talk with you. And then I'm going to come back and answer some questions from some of the folks here on this call. Would you be interested in a medicine that reduces stress, increases happiness, and makes you live longer? What if I told you that medicine is free and that there are no negative side effects. The medicine I'm talking about is not packaged as a pill, powder, or potion. Rather, it's delivered to your body and mind through your service to others. When I was fresh out of college, I landed my dream job with the city of Los Angeles as a management trainee. I had visions of rising through the ranks of government, working alongside other enthusiastic young people in an exciting department like water and power. Instead, I was offered a position with the Department of Aging that delivered Meals on Wheels, job training, and other essential services for the city's low-income seniors. I'm not proud to admit that I almost turned that job down when I learned that most of my colleagues would be in their 70s. But I accepted it because I had rent and student loans to pay. On my very first day at work, I met Thelma. She was about 5 feet tall, in her mid-70s, and she looked fabulous in her sparkling silver stilettos that she wore every day. She was the most put-together woman I had ever met, and she was so dedicated to her work. She would often stay late to make sure that her fellow seniors got the services that they needed. Her dedication kept her physically strong and mentally sharp. She had more zest for life than anybody I had ever met, and she was so different from many of our clients who spent their days dwelling on the past or in the inevitable aches and pains that can come with aging. More than 25 years have gone by since I worked with Thelma. Experience and education have reinforced the valuable lesson that she taught me, one that can best be summed up in the words of Martin Luther King, who said, "Everybody can be great because everybody can serve." For the past 7 years, I've been a member of the Rotary Club of Portland, Oregon, and like all local Rotary Club members, I also belong to Rotary International, which is one of the oldest and largest service organizations in the world. Now, as the president of my club's Charitable Trust, I love tracking the financial generosity of my fellow members who contribute so much to a wide variety of worthwhile causes. But what impresses me even more is their commitment to service. Every year, members of my club volunteer in a wide array of service projects in areas that include domestic violence prevention, homeless solutions, community grants, international service, peace building, environmental protection, and polio eradication. Members of Rotary who embrace service are some of the most joyful and optimistic people I know. However, I am really worried that someday my club will have to cut back on its service work because we won't have enough volunteers and enough members. This problem is not unique to my club. Over the past 2 decades, Rotary has seen a 25% decrease in its membership across the United States. A lot of other great service organizations are also struggling. The Shriners, Masons, Elks, Lions, and many nonprofits have seen significant declines in both members and volunteers over the past few decades. Why is it that so many wonderful service organizations and great nonprofits are failing to recruit and retain members? Well, one of the biggest reasons I feel is that they continue to appeal to people's altruism while ignoring the motivating power of self-interest. I know this from personal experience. When I served as membership chair of my Rotary Club, I felt all I needed to do was to go out in the world and share the good news. Tell people about our great service work, and people would flock to join us. I failed. As membership chair, I saw membership decline. If service organizations and nonprofits want to not only survive, but thrive, they must move away from altruism and appeal directly to people's self-interest, even if that approach seems crass. It used to be
that altruistic appeals were enough. Back in the day when a lot of people worked 40-hour work weeks and had long lunch hours and weekends free, they had time to join a service organization or volunteer for a nonprofit. And in good chunks of our country, community service was seen as something that good citizens just did. Now, finding members and volunteers is a lot more challenging. Stagnating middle-class wages mean that a lot of people are working longer hours simply to get by. And many of us have a hard time leaving work at the workplace because our jobs now follow us 24/7 through text messages and emails. So, how do we break through? How do we attract people in? Well, I think we need to lean in to self-interest and move away from this notion of altruism. And this may sound rather self-serving to many of you. But here's the thing. If we have service organizations and nonprofits aren't growing, we could be very proud of ourselves, but we're going to die. And we need to give ourselves permission to better ourselves through service so we can sustain our commitment to serving others. We now live in this age in which we are just deluged with information. We say we don't have time, but what if we just turned off our devices, our smartphones, our computers, and televisions for just a little bit of time? And instead of spending it there, we devoted it to service. Think of the benefits that we would get out of that. What are they? What benefits might we see from service? Well, I'm going to go through just some. I don't have time for all of them. But if you're looking to live a healthier life, service can provide that. There's a lot of research that has come out that has shown strong correlations between those who serve and those who enjoy good health. One recent study found that people who volunteer 200 hours a year were 40% less likely to suffer from hypertension than non-volunteers. This is due to their being social, active, and yes, altruistic. If you seek a longer life, consider service. Consider service. 40 international studies found up to a 22% reduction in mortality rates for those who serve. And it's not going to take as much time as you might think. One study found that people who volunteer just 25 hours a year for a cause or organization that's important to them see a significant increase in their life expectancy. The emotional benefits of service are also worth emphasizing. If you want tranquility, service actually kicks off a process that makes this happen. When you serve others, your body produces oxytocin, which is a hormone that buffers stress and puts you into a more relaxed state. If you're wanting more friendships, consider service. A recent study found that 25% of all Americans say they don't have a single friend or family member to confide in when they have a problem. This social isolation is incredibly alarming, and it also presents a major public health challenge. Lack of friendships has been found to be a more significant indicator of early death than obesity, smoking, or high blood pressure. And when we serve others, we're associated with people who share similar values to ours. Can you imagine a better group of people to become potential friends? And when you serve others, what I've found is that oftentimes the people you're serving go on to become your friends as well. If you're craving happiness, service provides a way. When you serve, your brain is producing dopamine, which is this mood-elevating neurotransmitter. If you're runners, you've heard of this. You call it the runner's high. You get it from doing marathons and all these extreme events. Here's the good news. You don't have to run anywhere. You do not have to run anywhere. You can stand in place, or if you want to sit down, helping a single person, and you're going to get a huge dopamine rush. On top of that, when you serve others, you're giving your life a sense of purpose and mission that for many folks translates directly into higher levels of happiness. Yes, I can make a very compelling argument for service on scientific grounds. But for many of us, a much more convincing way to appreciate service is to look at the people we admire and see what they get out of it. My 86-year-old father and 81-year-old mother moved into an adult living community a couple of years ago. When they made a transition from a home they had lived in for 40 years to a small apartment, I worried about how well they would adapt. My worries were unfounded. Now, when I try to call my parents on the phone, they're never home. They're out serving people. They volunteer in the community garden. They volunteer in the convenience store for residents. They volunteer in the local elementary school. They volunteer on the welcoming and leadership committees. They write articles for the community newspaper. They are doing so much stuff. My brothers and I are convinced that our parents look and act much younger than most people their ages because of their service work. They're so busy volunteering that they don't have time to dwell on the passing of friends and relatives or the many other challenges that can face people as they age. I'm convinced that their service has provided them with a quality of life uplift that absolutely no medicine could possibly deliver. My hope is that someday a lot more people in the world will have this benefit of service that my parents enjoy. For this to happen, service organizations and nonprofits need to do a much better job sharing how volunteers benefit from service rather than relying on altruistic appeals that have lost their impact. But none of us should wait for this to happen. Instead, we should go out and talk to the people we admire who serve and ask them how it makes them feel. There's an excellent chance we're going to hear variations of, I get so much more than I give. Then, let's ask them why. And listen very carefully to what they have to say. And let their why help motivate us to embrace the power of doing well for ourselves by doing good for others.
I believe you are open to some questions from your fellow Rotarians that might be on this call right now.
I absolutely am.
Great. Is there anyone want to raise their hand if they have a question for Patrick? Go, Dev.
Patrick,
Yes, Dev.
what do I do next? How do I go out and share and encourage people to get engaged?
Well, right now we're in a very special time. So
Outside of this very special time.
Well, I think the special time is an opportunity for us. So I think Rotarians can serve others by continuing doing what they're doing. So stay with your committees. There are going to be virtual committee meetings. Meet with your committee members. And if no one on your committee is taking the charge to do virtual meetings, then you should take the charge. There's no reason that your committee should stop being in action during this time of pandemic, which we don't know how long it's going to last. I love Kate's thing from the beginning. They faced it in 1918, the club went on, we can go on and thrive. So stay with your committees. I would say be of service to others by sharing this online meeting with people who might be interested in joining Rotary, and let them see that Rotarians do not stop when times get tough. We come together, we continue to find ways to make it work. And also, let's leverage some of the things that are going on in the Rotary world. So I love that Rotary and Rotaract, the Big West chapter of Rotaract, came up with this mutual aid form that people can go online and fill it out, and they could either offer assistance or they could ask for assistance. It's a really cool initiative that they're doing. So I know that that will be shared in the notes for this particular session, but those are 3 very specific things that one can do right now, not waiting for this to be over, because I think now is the time to be engaged and to take action.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there, I have a couple questions, but is there anything from the rest of our participants right now? Any other questions for Patrick? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, then I would like to know, well, there are a few. basically, I am going to go back to, I mean, it's top of mind for all of us, the coronavirus, this period. So how can Rotarians serve when the coronavirus has shaken up our lives so very dramatically?
I think the first thing everyone needs to do is heed the advice that we hear when we get on a plane, when they say when the oxygen masks drop, put them on yourself and then help others. So the first thing, I want people to make sure that they're taking care of themselves. Go out and get your walks, socially distanced, physically distanced, not socially distanced. Go out with your neighbors and friends. Just walk 6 feet away from them. Stay connected to people. Stay connected to friends. Get some exercise. Take care of yourself. Nurture your body and mind with stuff that's going to help you. Don't go down the abyss of negativity, but look for ways to kind of empower yourself with some positive things. And I've got some ideas for that. And use technology. So those guys in 1918 couldn't meet, but we can. I've been to so many virtual happy hours. I'm not sure if there are excuses for people to drink more this time because they're not drinking alone because they're drinking virtually. The drink of choice, by the way, in a virtual happy hour is the Corintini. The recipe is whatever you want to make it. It seems like strong is like the main requisite for a good Corintini. But yeah, meet with your friends. Our family has a standing happy hour Sundays at 7 o'clock. I have gone months and months without seeing my brothers. I've seen them week after week, 3 weeks in a row. It's kind of freaky. I feel more connected to my family than before. So use technology. Connect to your family and friends. Take care of yourself. There's a lot of other practices that I can get into, Kate. I don't know how I'm running with time.
You're good right now. I think you running through the resources that you have that you look to at this time, besides the video call, are there other resources that you have?
There's one thing that I just put on my LinkedIn. Yesterday we went out at 7 o'clock. So in Portland, we are early people. So in the rest of the world, they call it Solidarity at 8. In Portland, I guess we go to sleep earlier. So at 7 o'clock, if you go out onto your porch, your balcony, your front yard, bring a pot, a pan, and just bang it together to show solidarity to all those people on the front lines of the coronavirus. The doctors, the nurses, the EMTs, and for that matter, the grocery store folks, the people in the pharmacies, the people who literally are putting their lives to risk to serve us. 3 houses down from us, there's a emergency room physician at Kaiser, and her husband who's a hospitalist. They're working crazy hours. There are so many people doing so much. It is so simple to go out there at 7 o'clock and just show support. This came out of Italy. They were singing arias. My voice is terrible. I do much better with a pot and pan and making noise. Our daughter loves it. It's an excuse to get outside. So participate in solidarity at 7. If you don't know what it is, step outside and listen, because I bet you there are people in your neighborhood who are beginning to adopt this. And I think it's a very cool thing and easy thing to do. And we all need fresh air as we get cabin fever.
Yes, I too have been doing that, and I actually met a neighbor across the way. I mean, obviously across the street, who I did not know that she worked in a local hospital, and she had just gotten home from work and was in her scrubs when it all started happening, and she kind of stood and yelled thank you back out to all of us, and it was pretty good. It was pretty good to be able to offer that thanks to her and to her colleagues at that time. So yes, every night at 7 p.m., step on outside. I have one more question, unless anybody else on the call has a question for you. Okay, so my one more question is, after listening to your talk, I wanted to know, how do you, and I guess maybe this is a little particular to right now, how do you define service? Meaning, does the research that you did about service and what it gives to those of us that are offering service, do you think that, or have you seen that it gives the same benefits to those of us that are doing the serving when we make a donation to a specific cause, or is there more benefit when we can actually have some way to interact or to communicate with someone who is receiving that service?
So I don't think there's a universal answer to that one, Kate. It's a great question. I think if you think about the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, I think that might give you the best cue or maybe clue on what would give you a sense of purpose. So imagine yourself as the person working in the emergency room, whether as a doctor, a nurse, or just someone helping out there. what could someone do for you if you were in that situation that would make you feel good? And if you can deliver upon that thing, it's, I think, going to make you feel good because you're doing something that that person will appreciate. And I think it will vary from person to person. I think there are people who are more extroverted, more introverted. We all have different skills, different abilities. But I think if you serve according to your ability and you give something that you would find meaningful, I think that act of service is going to be meaningful to you.
That's exactly it. You said serve to your level of ability. Is that how you phrased it?
Your level of your capacity, your level. I mean, we all are in different phases and have different things that we can do. The key is to serve.
Perfect way to end that. Thank you so much, Patrick. Serve to your capacity and to the level that you can. Couldn't say it better myself. Thank you again for willing to share that TEDx talk with us, as well as for being able to participate on our call and answer these questions today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for doing these meetings, Kate. I was telling you offline last week that when I was a kid, I loved this show called Romper Room. And there was this woman named Miss Mary Ann. And I was convinced that she was talking to me every time I watched that TV show. I get that same vibe from you. I feel like you're reaching out and we're having a conversation. I love it. So thank you for doing this.
I am so happy that you are receiving it that way. And I can only hope that that lands as well for others. Thank you again, Patrick.
Thanks, Kate.
And next week, our speaker for next week's meeting will be someone that we have actually had out to our club a few years ago to speak. And it's futurist and author Brian David Johnson. And he will discuss how a futurist thinks about the current pandemic, as well as what comes after. So as always, I know that he welcomes questions. And since we are now pre-recording our meetings, please post your questions. If you have any questions for him, please post them right here on the Facebook page if you're watching this on our Facebook page, or email them to our office. And if you could do that by the end of this coming weekend, that will help all of us be prepared to share those questions with him on the call next week. I want to thank all of our speakers today, as well as our club's membership, whenever it is and wherever it is that you may be viewing this meeting. This is all new. I don't think anyone knows the right way to do this. I'm sure there are many opinions on what is the right way. So I just ask each of our club's Rotarians to please take care of you yourself first, whatever that might look like, and then your family, then your friends, and know that as your fellow Rotarians do the same, we will also continue to reach out to each of you, and we will continue to refine our process of sharing the service opportunities that we see coming up. And we will also continue sharing any fellowship opportunities that we can see coming up, of course, keeping that distancing in mind. But as Patrick said, it's not so much, we don't want to socially distance, but we just need to physically distance ourselves. But there's opportunities for fellowship, and we're going to keep sharing that with you. At our Trust Board meeting last week, Rotarian AJ Barnett emphasized that at a time like this in our world's history, this is the time for Rotarians to live our motto of service above self. So thank you for joining us again today, and this meeting is now adjourned.